So, good evening, President Farmer, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Kasun, Mr. Eldridge, community members. Tonight we're going to share some updates with you about some changes in programs and protocols that we have implemented in special education over the past 2 years. I would like to introduce Rebecca Guenther, who's our Supervisor of Special Education for grades pre-K to 6, and Nicole Sasse, who is our Supervisor of Special Ed for grades 7 to graduation. And just to begin with, I would like to acknowledge the significant contributions that both Ms. Guenther and Ms. Sasse have made this year to making improvements in our special ed programs. It's been a challenging year for all, and they've been extremely dedicated, and I just want to really acknowledge them and thank them for that.
Thank you.
So you, thank you. So you do have a copy of the presentation in the folder in front of you, and I thought it would be good just to give you a little glimpse of, you know, what is the breakdown of our special ed population and how many do we have in the district. So if you look at the chart in front of you, this really tells you the number of students in each building. So the majority of our programs in grades pre-K to 3 are in between Ben Franklin and LES. That's why the largest numbers of students there. And Rebecca's going to go into a little bit more detail about the specific programming, but at Ben Franklin School we have we have 3 preschool classes, and then we have some of our other small classes for students with autism. And the majority of our preschool classes, though, are at LES. So when you look at the numbers that in the elementary grades, that really is why there's a little bit of a difference there in the size of the programs. Okay? So the second slide, this was really, I wanted to just show you the breakdown of the classifications of the students that we have, so that I can just tell you what they are here. So at the top, it's SLD, that's students with a specific learning disability. And I can send you this, so just, you know, more information. OHI is other health impaired, AUT is autism, CI is communication impaired, MD is multiply disabled, PSD is preschool, ERI is emotional regulation impairment. And then we come into our lower incident classifications. So there's mild intellectual disability, traumatic brain injury, auditory impairment, orthopedic impairment, and socially maladjusted. Those, there's very low incidence. That's why they're not, in some cases we only have maybe 1 student or more in those categories. But if you look at the bar graph, you'll see that, so for the majority of our students in district are classified as specific learning disabled. And then when you get down to, you know, other health impaired, autism, CI, they're pretty close. And then the other ones, you know, then you can see multiply disabled. And our preschool population is right in that. I think right now we have about 48 students, 48 preschool students. So when you look at the number of students that, based on their classification in district in the blue, the out of district, the red portion of that graph just gives you an understanding of, well, who are the students who are out of district? What are their needs? Why are they out of district? So the majority of our students are out of district, as you can see. They aren't our students with a specific learning disability. They're really students who have autism, who are other health impaired, multiply disabled, or have an emotional regulation impairment. So specifically, the need for out-of-district placement usually has to do with the fact that, you know, there are either significant behavioral needs, they need a smaller ratio. Basically, they need resources that we can't provide in the district, because we really do provide a lot of extra resources, and we really try to do that first before we go out of district. But just to give you a sense of how the breakdown is. I also thought it would be helpful for you to see a little bit about what, you know, the work of the child study team this year. So what this does not include, it doesn't include all the meetings that they hold, all the annual reviews. It does not include their re-evals. But so during this school year, we received 131 referrals to special ed for evaluation. Out of those 131 referrals, 86 of them were eligible. Only, 8 students were declassified and 40 graduated. And the total number currently, that's as of today, of special ed students that we have is 676. So that's kind of where we are. And the numbers are constantly changing depending on, who's moving in. Do we have preschool students that are coming in before they turn 3? So that can, completely shift the numbers. The other thing that we wanted to show to you, since I did mention a little bit about the classifications of the students in out-of-district placements, we spend a lot of time going out and doing observations of those students. Our case managers, right now I think we have 3 or 4 case managers who are managing students in out-of-district settings. They spend a lot of time going out and observing them, talking to parents, taking a look at what their needs are. And in doing so, we really have been able to successfully bring back a number of students. But what we realized this year is that we really needed a much clearer process. So in your packet, there's actually a chart. We aren't able to open it up from the PowerPoint, so I'll show it to you here. Yeah. So it's this chart. And the chart has been growing the more that we've been doing this, because we realize that it's important to make sure that we have all the stakeholders involved in making the recommendation to provide that support to return a student to district. So not only does the case manager need to be, the out-of-district case manager needs to be involved, the in-district case manager needs to be involved, the building administrator, the supervisors, the related service providers, teachers. We want input from everybody so that we brainstorm everything that student's going to need before they come back. And then we want people to sign off on it so that there's a level of commitment to that process, and we can make sure that we've communicated it with everyone. So we're still refining this, but we have been using it, and we wanted to share that with you. Okay, so I'm going to let Rebecca talk here for a minute. Sure. Yep. Sure.
Is that what you're saying? The green part are the students that are in district, and then just the red portion are the students that are out of district.
In that particular classification.
So the majority
are in district. With that classification. And again, at the end, we can identify if there's any other data that you want. If you want the data that's behind the charts, I can give you that. So, yep.
All right. So then, sorry, I'm a little shorter, to say the least, which helps because I help with the little guys, so it works. But yeah, so to get into some specifics of our elementary program, so I supervise preschool to 6th grade, so I got the gauntlet. And within our preschool, we have integrated classes, which have students that are identified as having special needs, as well as general ed students, and self-contained classes for those students that need more support. We continue to have in K-6 inclusion, which is in IEPs, ICS, that has the 2 teachers, gen ed, special ed, as well as the OCR resource, and MD classes. Some things that we really wanted to highlight that are different or new. Within elementary, we have started what we call the WINGS program, as we named it, but it's an ERI program that it began at Eldridge Park 2020 to 2021. And continued this year. And really, I'll get into some specifics of that program, but it's really to help students that have emotional, behavioral needs, to help them develop some of those skills so that they can then have more time in inclusion, as well as an LLD class that was the first class we've had at Eldridge Park this year, which we're very excited about and we've had a lot of success with. This year we also had the WINGS program move up to LIS, so some of our students that were in the elementary one then moved up to 4th grade, and we have the continuum of the program at that level. And next year we're excited for the same thing to happen with our LLD class, for that to start at LIS next year. So within that, to get into some specifics, the WINGS program, which is our ERI class, One thing that we made sure we wanted to do is that we designated a case manager for each class in the respective buildings, so that the students in those buildings had a go-to person. That's also the person that will do their individual therapy counseling if they have it, and pushes in to do whole class lessons. We also have a behaviorist that's specifically designated for those classes so that we make sure there's consistency, who will also push into the classes. We've been using restorative practice. The middle school and the high school have done it, and then in the elementaries, Wings has really done it as well, so our ERI class. So we use those strategies within that classroom. A lot of times you'll see that like they'll open up with a morning meeting with a circle based on restorative practice and kind of build those skills. Overall, the class itself is built around positive behavioral supports, depending on what the student needs, because it's special education, so everything's individualized. We have whole class, but we also have individual BIPs and behavior plans, different token economies, reward systems that work for each individual student. And we also build time into the day so that if they have reinforcers, they need breaks, things like that are like built into the schedule. The class itself is much smaller, so we have a lot more student to staff ratio. It's roughly 8 kids to 3 at the largest, and the teachers as well as the assistants are trained in restorative practice as well as CPI, so the whole continuum of services really hopefully is tailored to meet the needs of the students. One thing we're really excited about this year is at Eldridge Park we were able to get therapy dogs in once a week starting in, I want to say it was November, just as something special. And the picture that you can see there is actually from that classroom, and their culminating kind of activity is they each picked an animal and did an animal report that they then presented to the dog. It's just something like fun and exciting to really make it fun, but they, making learning fun is what we're trying to do. Yeah, they are. And then we initially developed the program in consultation with Brett DeNovi so that we did have outside, people kind of giving us some guidance and making sure that we're doing it right. And they also recommended the ACT AIM curriculum, so we do utilize that as appropriate with students.
Just a quick question. Do parents understand restorative practice at this level?
We have not trained parents on it, but I will say that as part of the program, there's daily communication. So I think that as they see what we're doing, what that piece is, to have that. But I know that in some of the PD going forward, it's been talked about kind of, we've now, which will be later, so I don't want to take thunder from later. It's okay. But that's a great question. So one of the things we want to continue to do is do more restorative practice training. And one of the things we're looking to do is involve parents in that, because we did train trainers. Within this, that brochure button is clickable, but you don't have to do that. It's in your packet. But that'll give you a lot more specifics about the WINGS program in terms of who the stakeholders are in it, as well as contact information for the case manager, the behaviorist, the principals associated with it, because we really want to make sure that we have like an all-inclusive, as well as nurses. Some students may need medication, that kind of thing with it. There is the referral process, because we kind of have our own piece that we want to make sure, because it is a self-contained program, that we've done an FBA, a BIP. We have tried other interventions before we go to this more restrictive placement. That being said, it's a very fluid program. So we have students that are pushed out for science and social studies, pushed out for math, are only there for the morning meeting. So it's really individualized how much of your day you spend in the classroom, which across the board is what we're doing for the programs, because we do want inclusion, and that's why they're in our schools. So the kids go out to the same lunch, recess, specials, all those types of things. And if needed, they'll go with assistant support, or if not, we kind of pull that back, but we do that as students gain that ability. Next piece is our LLD class. So that started this year at Eldridge Park, and we'll be moving up to LIS next year. We have teachers in there that are specifically trained in reading interventions, because it's really targeting students that need language, communication, those types of supports. So they focus on increasing phonological awareness, decoding, fluency, comprehension, a lot of things that we do in other classes, but we make sure it's even more infused. Like even in science, we're still kind of focusing on that. In social studies, we're still focusing on those things. Again, we're very much looking for inclusion, so specials, lunch, resource, recess, all of those are push-out times, and then the other subjects would depend on where the student is. We don't typically push out for language arts in that, because if you're in this program, it's for the very specific targeted reading instruction. And if you're ready to push out for language arts, you're ready to leave the class. But that has also, we've seen a lot of success in there. The classroom assistants are also being trained by the teachers in terms of how to utilize some of like OG, Wilson, some of the different strategies we use within that. And I think that's it. I'll turn it over to my partner.
Okay, I gotta go. All right, hello again, everybody. So I'm Nicole Sasse again, and I'm talking about, I'm the supervisor for grades 7 through graduation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our programs that we've kind of adapted and added to the middle school and the high school. So for this school year, specifically for the middle school and the high school, we added 2 MD classes. So we have multiply disabled classes located in both of the buildings. We have, and I'll talk a little bit more about them. And then we also have an LLD program at the middle school, and then also an LLD program at the high school, and those are coming next school year. So it's something that we've been working on, you know, as Rebecca's building up her programs in the elementary school, we've been trying to build up ours in the middle school and the high school, so that way we can match. So that way, once students are going through the continuum, there's a program available for them, once at every building and at every level. Specifically, another program we're working on that we have at the high school is our CORR Academy. It's a program that we've had at the high school. It's something that started a couple years ago, but it's something that we're solidifying for our students. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of go along. And I apologize if I run my belly a lot, but somebody's kicking me a lot right now. A lot. He's like, I like being up here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our middle school MD program. So again, as Rebecca talked about, our real goal with our students is inclusion. So while we have this self-contained program, we try to push out the students as much as possible, depending on their ability, depending on their interests, where they want to go, what they want to do. And what I really try to focus on for the middle school and the high school is making the students feel like they're getting a traditional middle school or high school experience. So we're focusing on that rotation. If students are rotating throughout the building for, you know, English, math, science, social studies, our students are too. So there's a different math teacher who's content specific, there's a different science teacher. So it's not as though the students are in the same classroom all day with the same teacher. And I think that's important for our middle school and high school students to really get to experience and have that day just like a typical student. They also get to do electives with their peers, PE, lunch, recess, the usual. And then what's specific about our MD program is they have a daily living skills class. And so we're focusing on those life skills with students. And I wrote a couple of things, you know, time management, money, transportation, meal prep, leisure activities. And then at the middle schools too, we're starting those pre-vocational activities, starting to get students interested. What do you like? What are you interested in? What's something, where do you see yourself in the future? To kind of get those conversations starting to go. So that's our middle school MD program. We also have, so what I said was is coming new for this school year is we have our MD and our LLD program that's occurring, our LLD program, which is occurring at both the middle school and the high school for next school year. So really for those students, we're focusing on their academics, their social emotional communication, and their executive functioning skills. These are students that we're trying to push out into more resource classes and more inclusion classes based on their strengths. But they're also students who need that comfort zone. They need that group that they know they can go back to and rotate and be with and get that extra support if they need it. So what's different about this program is they have a specific study skills course. So they're doing time management, organization, note-taking, graphic organizer, self-advocacy skills. We're trying to really give these students the opportunity to push back out. And again, we look at each student individually, we look at the different subject areas, we look at their strengths, we look at their weaknesses, and we say, what can we push them towards? And really our goal for our LLD program is to continue to push students out because we don't want them to stay with us all day. We want them to be with us for a period or two, feel that comfort safety zone, and then fly. So that's our LLD program. Like I said, those are actually coming next year. So that's something we're excited for to have in both of our buildings. And also when Rebecca's students, like she talked about, she has the LLD programs building. Now when her students continue to move through the continuum, there's programs available for them. They're already established. They've already shown success. And then her students could just jump on in and start to fly. And then, so high school CORR Academy, which I touched about a little bit. So we've had this program for a little bit. It's something that we're trying to continue to build and, see how we can continue to impact our students. So our CORR Academy is similar to WINGS, which Rebecca talked about. It's our students with our ERI. And really, we're trying to focus on building a community at the high school. So we have a dedicated social worker who works with the students. The same thing, goes into the classroom, does individual counseling, also does group counseling with the classes as a whole. Again, traditional high school rotation. They're rotating throughout the building. Nobody realizes they're in CORR Academy. If you ask the kids where they are, they'll tell you, I'm in the place that I want to be. They don't realize there's anything different about it. They have the buy-in. We also utilize the restorative practices and social emotional learning. There's additional support for the students. So this is actually our CORR Academy staff. They just went on a canoeing team building trip this school year, which they had a great time with. But so there's a lot of staff there to support them, and it gives the students that confidence building, again, that safe space. And again, when students are ready, whether it's a period, whether it's half a day, they can push out into the general ed for, whatever is most appropriate for them. And one of the things that we're focusing on for next year for CORR Academy is we're infusing a little bit more of that career readiness, because that's a piece that we want to begin to focus on with that group. So the students are taking a career exploration class as part of one of their requirements for the program. And then they also have the option, we're doing a culinary class with them as well to focus on cooking skills. And then also a real world communication class to kind of focus on, interviewing skills, interpersonal relationships, because that's a lot of the stuff that our students struggle with. And then our last program at the high school is we have our Quest program. So traditionally we've had our Quest program, which is our MD self-contained program. So we had the 12 plus program, but what we noticed last year, our students that just came up actually this year, was we were missing a 9-12 program. And it was something that, we had a group of about 7 students that really needed a more self-contained program that focuses more on applied core academic skills and transition skills. So what we developed was we actually designed, I want to say, about 9 different curriculums for the students. So the staff have been hard at work. We created an applied math course, an applied language course, applied life science, biology, chemistry, so that way they're still getting the academic skills that they need, but we're also incorporating that real world piece to it. So yes, I'm going to learn about science, yes, I'm going to learn about the environment, but I'm going to learn about my impact and what do I do if I recycle? Like, how does that impact the environment? So really taking the academic skills and marrying it with that real world instruction. And then again, they focus on that traditional high school rotation. And they also have 2 things that are very unique to the program. So we have community-based instruction. So students in both of the programs, our 9-12 and our 12 plus, go out into the community on a bi-weekly basis. So 2 times a month they go out into the community. They go on shopping trips. And the teacher walks them through the process of how to shop, how to buy groceries. They go to different locations within the community. They also practice ordering out food at a restaurant. They went to the bank to figure out, how do I open a bank account? What does that process look like? So we're really giving them those hands-on experience. When the students turn 16, they then also get work-based learning experiences. And what that is the students go out into the community to different job sites. We have job sites within our buildings, so when they're 16, they start mostly in the buildings. We're getting them familiar with, here's some different jobs that are available, here's some tasks that we could try, let's see how you like it. Then they start to, when they get older, go out into the community, and they're going out at least 1 to 2 days a week, where they're out into the community. They're working at Five Below. So if you go to Five Below, we're there. Cafe Du Pain, we're at. There's a bunch of different local business communities that have really opened up to the students and having them work there. One of our future plans is actually to have our 12 plus students spend half a day in the building and then go out for half a day. Out to work. So that's our ultimate goal coming down the line. So we're trying to push those students out more and more into the community, because once they hit 21 and they've met their graduation requirements, they really need to focus on that transition and how can we get them those skills they need to be successful. So that's our Quest program. Yeah, sure.
Do you survey parents, and if you have, what have been some of the responses, and give me some information as to what they think?
Of the programs, yeah. So I think what the parents, I will say, we've kind of had, so when the students came from the middle school specifically to the high school, it was something different for the students. They were used to being in, we call them our OCR resource classes all day. So really what we did was we sat down with the parents and we went through the curriculum stuff. And I think the parents are very excited. They know their students need that extra support, of that daily living skills, of that career exploration piece, but they also want them to feel like typical high school students. So I think what we've gotten an overwhelming response for is that the typical high school experience that we're giving the students is what they love. And one other thing that I don't think I actually mentioned, but there's teachers teaching core academic areas. So for instance, my freshman teacher, Michelle Ross, love her. She teaches freshman English. She also taught the freshmen that were in our Quest program this school year. So when she felt that students were ready, she recommended them for her OCR class. So they're really getting the content-specific teachers for the subject areas. So the same science teacher that a junior might have, they may have that teacher as well. So the parents really were receptive and really loved the fact that the teachers really got to know the kids. The teachers were content specialized, and if they felt the students were ready to move on to a different class, that they could. And that was definitely a big sell. They also love the focus, I think, on the career exploration has been the other piece. And parents want the kids to go out more. That's what we get a lot of. When can we go out? How many times can we go out? Can we go out more? What other places in the community will have us? So one of the things, again, trying to work on is expanding the partnerships in the community. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we did lose a couple partnerships because we were supposed to be at the hospital, but during COVID, they didn't want us there. So there's definitely some rebuilding that's happening just in terms of our community partnerships, but that's definitely something, again, that we're trying to work on. Just hope that answered. No problem.
The partnerships in our last meeting of the businesses that
Yeah, there's a very long list of partnerships. What we want to do is we want to get there a little bit more. So they'll be like, oh, you can come for a half hour, 40 minutes. And I want to be like, can we stay half a day? That's what we're trying. Once you get the into a place and they start to see our kids and they start to see our kids and they're like, ooh, we like this. And then we're like, ooh, okay, so you'll take more, right? So it's all about that. It's all about working with the community members.
You have some fundraisers for the students with big products.
Yes.
So exciting.
And they've done a couple fundraisers this year, though not as much. I know for Halloween they did like candy jars. The students made them, but they do a lot of projects actually, which I didn't mention within.
They helped our touch. We have some classes that were utilizing touch math, so the transition, because we do talk a lot, the transition class helped us out, and they made like numbers with the touch points. So they took it upon to like take the orders, say how much we need, and then made some of like the manipulatives for us to use. So we're looking to expand some of that too, and hopefully maybe next year we can get them to like pitch their product, and maybe some of the younger kids can order it and kind of in-house do some more things so that, yes, they're making something, but they're also like getting that skill of how do I take an inventory? How many do I need? That sort of thing. All right.
There you go. But yes, they do lots of things like that. They organize different binders for teachers. They fold up the playbooks for different plays and different events. So they do a lot of in-house jobs. But like I said, I think we've got a lot in-house going, and we want to continue to expand now that out in the community, because we want the community to see us, and we want them to see our students, get to know our students, so that way when it is time for graduation, they're like, oh, I remember you. I've seen you around. You worked at the ShopRite for a while. And then be like, you know what, come on in. Let me give you an interview. So we really want to get our kids out into the community, get the community to know them, and then also the community is going to be the one that's going to support them later on in life.
All right. My guess is we're running long, but that happens, sorry. So I'll kind of go kind of quick. So current curriculums we're using are up here. I won't read them to you. One that maybe people are less familiar with is Project Read. We did a lot of training this year at LIS and the middle school for different facets of that. So that has a linguistics, which is kind of like your phonics, your basic reading skills, sentence writing, which is to expand their writing and framing your thoughts as a comprehension piece, and that's multisensory, so that we have just more tools in our tool belt, basically. Edmark we've had, that's for students that are more maybe potentially Quest or something like that, that's like life skills based reading. Touch Math, as we said, and Act Aim was a social emotional component that we utilized. What's a little more exciting is some of the trainings. So this is list of teacher trainings that were held this year, as well as some assistant training. We wanted to make sure we included that because that has been a big push for us, that we're trying to do very specific trainings for assistants, not just like online virtual pieces, because they spend so much time with our students, are so integral to our programs, and they spend a lot of time with some of our students most in need. So we want to make sure that they have training as well. So we did restorative practice. In addition to those listed, we also have in-house trainers now. So we have staff members that are trained as trainers, so we can continue to expand and then use that hopefully to push out to parents and the larger community. CPI training, Project Read, as I said, Gold is specific for preschool. iReady is district-wide. We can't really take credit for that, but it was brought to the middle school, but we're using that as like an additional resource. We trained related service providers, so that's speech, OT, PT. They attended a training just how to incorporate life skills within their therapy sessions, so that, you know, I'm not working on this isolated task. You know, we're expanding it to real world purposes. And then DLM training teachers have to do if a student takes an assessment in a different way. The assistants had very similar. You can see a lot of it mirrors, but we did focus on running record was a little different, so they can help us with assessing progress and reading, as well as de-escalation strategies. So we have some students, if they're upset, we give them like more tools. Discrete trial training, so that's specifically for our students that are doing discrete trialing, but how to track the data, how to be consistent so that we're sure that we're getting good data. Executive functioning, we have found that, especially in our OCR classes when we have assistants, a lot of times it's helping students like, how are you being organized? How are you going to keep track of this? And not doing it for them, but teaching them how to do it for themselves. Giving them that guidance, but not being like the crutch, being like the elevator to push them up. Playworks is something too that we've had a lot of support with, but they've helped us train assistants and lunch assistants on like recess and games. I don't know if you want to speak about that more. And then just social emotional learning that we've done. And then I think I'll turn it back to you.
Turn it back really quick. So then what we wanted to talk about a little bit is just our future curriculum and our future PD plans, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of glimpse of what's coming. So one of the things that we've noticed is we really want to expand our training for Orton Gillingham and for Wilson, so making sure that we have staff that are trained. We do have some staff that are trained, but we want to continue to expand that. Project Read, as Rebecca talked about, you know, we have story form, we have sentence writing, we want to bring paragraph writing to LIS and to LMS, so that way we can really focus now that students have the basis of a sentence, let's start to write those paragraphs. Also expanding Touch Math. Specifically for the high school, we're looking at a program called The Writing Revolution, which is something that's up and coming right now. So we're doing a pilot next school year with one of our classes at the high school, and then hope to expand that as well. For K-5, they're doing Bridges for Math. And then for speech, we want to work on augmentative communication. So one of our goals is, you know, we do have students that have or utilize different devices to communicate. So we really want to train our staff on those devices, what devices are best for our students, and then how to work, you know, effectively with the parents, and then also train the parents on how to use the devices. Restorative practice, we talked about a little bit doing the parent training. We also want to focus on restorative conferences. So restorative conferences is really working with the students and actually having our students take over and run restorative conferences with each other. So having the students problem solve and work together to kind of solve out their problems using the practices of restorative practice. We're continuing to expand our CPI training. So the number of students, or the number of student staff within our buildings that are trained to handle any crisis situations that may arise. And then also for preschool assistants, we're looking at tools of the mind. So those are our future curriculum and PD plans that are kind of coming next year. Is that all? Just a little bit, a little glimpse of what's happening. Sure.
How are we doing with getting our staff trained to become the trainers, so we don't always have to send people out?
Yeah, so for restorative practice specifically, that we have 15 trainers that we actually trained during the pandemic. It was wonderful. We were like, all right, if we're virtual, we can get them all together. Let's do this. So we have a bunch of staff members that are trained and can train other people. For Orton Gillingham, I know that's something we want to do. For Writing Revolution, like I mentioned, that we're doing the pilot. We're sending a teacher and a supervisor out to the program. It's an 11-hour training, so that way they can get the training and then we can train our own staff with it as well.
And CPI, we do have two district
trainers.
trainers that are training everyone within the district. Yeah. Absolutely.
Any other questions? So, thank you. And clearly, I think it's kind of evident as I was sitting here watching them. Both supervisors are very passionate about what they're doing, and they work well together. And they're very, they're trying to make sure that our programs, that there's continuity in programming across all the buildings and across the grade levels. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.